Our idyllic existence shattered the moment those photographs arrived, revealing a betrayal I could scarcely comprehend. For years, I believed we had a flawless life, a secure home, joyful children, and a bond built on trust. Or so I imagined. But circumstances shifted rapidly as fissures began to show in our union. The life I once knew felt completely alien. It began subtly: skipped meals, strained conversations, and explanations that made no logical sense. I dismissed it, assuming every partnership encountered difficulties. Yet, soon I found myself doubting everything, particularly Richard. In the period leading up to that pivotal evening, we resembled two strangers cohabiting. He would return home late, and our discussions were fraught with tension. I struggled to maintain appearances for our children, clinging to the hope that normalcy would eventually return. Then the night those incriminating images appeared, my entire reality collapsed. Every conviction I held about my spouse, our affection, and our shared journey dissolved instantaneously. Each day unfolded with the same unnerving pattern. Just before the school day concluded, a familiar older Volvo would consistently park nearby, never too close. One afternoon, a mother observed the driver peering through binoculars and promptly contacted the authorities. As the children streamed from the school building, I watched him exit his vehicle. Even from 400 yards away, I recognized his build, his agitated gestures. He showed some item to the police officer. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Thomas inquired. "Are you hurt?" "No, sweetie, I fabricated. The wind just blew something into my eyes." I embraced them both, walking towards our car. I glanced back, seeing him still conversing with the officer. 2 days later, I arranged for Penny to collect the kids. Within moments, Richard approached them. Madeline noticed him first and sprinted into his arms, Thomas following close behind. He embraced them tightly, and I watched, tears streaming. He knelt to speak with them, then turned to Penny. I walked over to him. "Hello, Richard. It has been a while." His gaze was filled with fury. "That was your decision, not mine." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I have never kept you from the children." He retrieved some documents from his jacket and presented them to me. "What do you call this?" I scanned them, identifying only one phrase: restraining order. "I do not understand," I said. "I never filed this." "Well, someone did," he countered. "Mommy, can Daddy come home with us?" Madeline asked, tugging on my arm. Richard gently shook his head. "Not this evening, darling." As he turned to depart, he stated over his shoulder, "By the way, I will deny this meeting ever occurred." "Richard, wait. May I have those papers?" "No, it is my sole copy. I will send it anonymously." He hugged and kissed the children, then walked away. They called out to him, but he did not look back. I observed him wiping his eyes inside his car. Penny stared at me in disbelief. "Tell me you did not do this, Kath. Richard is a good father." "I did not, Penny," I asserted firmly, "but I am going to discover who did." All the way home, his desperate, broken, and wounded expression haunted my thoughts. I tried to convince myself he deserved it. He had betrayed me by being intimate with another woman, less than 7 years of marriage, and he could not remain faithful. What was wrong with me? I loved him and exerted every effort to stay attractive for him. I believed he was proud of me, but I was mistaken. It had been almost a year since those pictures arrived. They left nothing to the imagination. A young blonde and him engaged in intimacy. In some shots, his face was obscured, but the tattoo gave him away. Property of Katherine Thompson, with an arrow pointing downwards. I remembered when he got it, on our first anniversary. I had laughed then, but I certainly was not laughing now. Looking at those photographs made me feel utterly disgusted. How could he do this to me? I recalled Penny's words. He was always an excellent father, deeply involved with Maddie and Tom. They adored him. I was shocked when he abruptly ceased seeing them for 3 months. There had been no contact. Despite everything, I did not hate him. I would never prevent him from seeing his children. As Richard walked away, he struggled to grasp how swiftly his life had unraveled. A year prior, he had a good job, a home, a loving spouse, and 2 wonderful children. Now, it was all gone. He sat in his car, repeatedly hitting his forehead against the steering wheel. How had one intoxicated night led to such devastation? Ordinarily, he did not drink much, but that evening at the company celebration, he felt profoundly alone. Katherine was absent, caring for her mother, so he consumed more alcohol than usual. He could recall nothing after the midpoint of the night and awoke in a hotel room with a terrible hangover. The hotel informed him he had reserved the room the previous week, which made no sense. When he returned to work, his colleagues were teasing him, and his boss, Craig, was not amused. "I saw you leaving with a blonde woman Saturday night. Kath is a great girl, and you are jeopardizing everything for a fleeting liaison." Richard could not remember any of it, but Craig filled in the blanks. Richard had departed the party with his arm around an unknown woman, someone nobody recognized. A week later, Katherine returned from her mother's, and 2 days after that, Richard was ejected from the house when she discovered the pictures. He relocated to his brother's place and soon received divorce documents. He never imagined Katherine would use the children against him, but this restraining order made arranging visits impossible. Back at home, I gave the children a snack and checked my email, but there was no message from Richard. While they completed their schoolwork, I started dinner, pondering how everything had gone so terribly wrong. Tony arrived home around 5:30 p.m., greeted by grunts from the kids and a kiss from me. He had been my steadfast support during the divorce, assisting me in finding a competent lawyer and securing a settlement. Richard offered minimal resistance when my solicitor threatened to restrict his access to the children. He conceded. "I do not feel good about the settlement," I confessed to Tony. "It seems I have everything, and he has nothing. He even has to pay the mortgage on the house he cannot live in." Tony insisted it was Richard's fault for not fighting back and for his infidelity. I had met Tony at work, where he was a solicitor and I worked in the accounts department. We started having lunch together, discussing our lives. He often mentioned he envied Richard for having a stable family. Over time, Tony became a trusted friend and confidant, and I shared everything with him, even the story of Richard's tattoo. As Tony went upstairs to change, my thoughts drifted to Richard's tear-streaked face. The entire situation felt unjust. He had lost access to the children while I gained everything. I teared up as I prepared dinner, and Tony noticed. "What is wrong? You seem down tonight," he inquired. "I just saw someone from my past. They are not doing well, and I keep wondering if there is anything I can do to help." Tony shrugged. "The only person who can help you is yourself. Winners and losers, that is life." "You are probably right," I replied. My worrying will not change anything, though doubt lingered in my mind. Later, as I sent the children to brush their teeth before bed, Thomas exclaimed, "I want Daddy to read me a story." Tony folded his newspaper and walked towards them, but Maddie cried out, "Not you! We want our real daddy." Tony's tone hardened. "Well, if your real daddy loved you, he would be here, would he not?" "Tony!" I yelled, rushing over as Maddie started crying. She looked up at me, eyes brimming with tears. "Daddy does love us. Does he not, Mommy?" "Of course he does, sweetie. He loves you more than anything." "I do not know why Tony said that," Maddie sniffled. "He does not like Daddy." I tried to reassure her. "I am sure Tony loves you too. He is just upset right now." "I do not like him. I want to see Daddy." "I am working on it, sweetie. Let us get you to bed, and I will arrange Daddy's visits." After tucking them in, I went downstairs, still fuming. "Do not ever talk to my children like that again." Tony gave me a harsh look. "Oh, they are your kids now? I thought we agreed they would be our kids when I moved in. Richard will always be their father. That will not change." Tony crossed his arms. "Perhaps I could have phrased it better, but they need to know the truth. He is not part of their lives anymore." "When was the last time they saw him?" 3 months ago. "Today," I said quietly. "He was with them at school when I was late." Tony's expression shifted. "Did you talk to him?" "No, he left before I arrived." "Typical. What did you say?" Tony's voice grew tense. I sat him down. He did not fight for anything. He got the house, the child support, the maintenance. He just gave in. Tony smirked. We told him, "Give us what we want, or you will never see your children again." He had no choice. Then why is he not using his visitation if the kids mean so much to him? "I do not know," I muttered, but I saw how heartbroken he was today. There has to be a reason. I did not mention the restraining order, but a part of me suspected Tony knew more about it than he let on. I remained quiet, awaiting the chance to read it myself. I checked my email again. Nothing from Richard. In desperation, I looked in the junk folder and found it, an attachment called Injunction. No message, just the file. I printed it out and placed it in my briefcase. Tony walked in with an overnight bag. I forgot to mention, I have to go to Southampton tomorrow. I will not be back until Friday evening. Just one night? You will be back Friday? I inquired. Yes, for sure. How about we go out to dinner Friday night? I will book a table, he offered, approaching me and wrapping his arms around me. How about a little affection before I leave? Not tonight, Tony. I am not in the mood. I pulled away from him. He sighed. Is this still about what I said to Maddie? Yes, it is. I cannot believe you would hurt a little girl's perception of her father just because you are jealous. I thought you were better than that. Jealous of him, really? Tony scoffed. Why else would you react like that when she prefers her dad? I challenged. Of course she prefers him, he said, frustrated. He has been in her life forever. I have only been here 6 months. There was a pause, and then Tony softened. I am sorry, Kathy. You are right. We just need more time. She will come around, especially since he is not visiting. I do not want to talk about this anymore. I am going to bed, I said, walking away. Meanwhile, Rob noticed something was amiss with Richard, who appeared utterly exhausted and kept dropping his tools. Okay, what did she do this time? Rob inquired, eyeing him. I am fine, Richard muttered. Come on, I can tell something is wrong. Yesterday you seemed like you were doing better, but now we are back to square one, Rob said, standing up and looking down at Richard as they worked on a car engine. Richard hesitated. She says she knows nothing about the restraining order. Acted like she was confused when I showed it to her. You talked to her? Are you insane? Your lawyer told you to adhere to the order until it is lifted, Rob reminded him. Yes, but they are not his kids, Rob. I had to see them, Richard said, his voice strained. Rob put a comforting arm around Richard's shoulders. Come on, let us call it a night and grab a beer later. They sat in the kitchen, Richard with a beer, Rob with a coffee. So, what happened today? Rob asked. I have been waiting outside the school for the past couple of weeks, just to catch a glimpse of Maddie and Tom, Richard admitted. Careful, Richie. That could get you into trouble. Yes, I know. A police officer already checked on me, but he understood. He is divorced too, Richard said. Stick to the story. What happened today? Kathy did not show up. Her friend Penny picked up the kids, so I thought it was a good time to talk. You should have seen them, Rob. They were so happy to see me. I bet they were. How long has it been? Rob asked. Richard sighed. Too long. About 3 months. Anyway, while I was with them, Kathy showed up and acted like it was all my fault. I showed her the injunction, and she claimed she did not know about it. She looked me in the eyes and lied. If I had not seen her signature on it, I might have believed her. How did she become this way? The Kathy I knew would not have done this, taken everything, and kept me from my children. Did I cause this, Rob? Did one mistake transform her into someone else? I doubt it was just you. That guy she is living with probably has a lot to do with it. So after I showed her the injunction, I left. Maddie wanted me to come home with them. As I walked away, Kathy asked for a copy of the injunction. Why would she do that if she already has one? I do not get it either. I thought you two were solid. Never expected her to react like this to one mistake. It was just one mistake, and I do not even remember it. Anyway, I told her I would email her a copy tonight, so I should go do that. Be careful, Richie. That could count as contacting her. Do not worry. I will set up a new Hotmail account and deny it. Richard headed to his room. Looking back, I cannot pinpoint how I ended up living with Tony. There was no grand romance or falling in love. He was simply always present. After the photos, I leaned on him for support, and he guided me through the divorce. He took charge, and I became dependent on him. He comforted me, took me out, and eventually, we ended up in bed. When he suggested moving in, it seemed like a sensible idea. I liked him. He was kind to me and the children. I did not feel passionate about him, but I believed it could work. Now I was witnessing a different side of Tony, cruel and vindictive. Richard would never have uttered such hurtful words to the children. If Tony was behind the injunction, it revealed a facet of him I had not realized. That night in bed, Tony attempted to cuddle, but I pulled away. I'm going to Maddie's room. I need sleep. Lying in her room, I thought about the injunction. It contained false assertions that Richard had threatened me and Tony, and my signature was at the bottom. I knew I had not made those statements. I resolved to seek legal advice. The next morning, breakfast was strained. Tony was displeased about being left alone. The children were upset with him, and I was utterly exhausted. I felt relieved to drop the kids at school and head to work. At work, I reviewed the restraining order again. The statements attributed to me were complete fabrications. The order had been requested by my firm, Pendleton, Sims, and Woodcock, on behalf of Tony and me. By mid-morning, I knew I needed to confront Mr. Michael Pendleton, the senior partner. I went to his office and knocked on the door. "Good morning, Kathleen. What can I do for you?" he asked, looking up from his desk. "I need help with a legal issue," I said, handing him the injunction papers. "This was served on my husband, but I never made the statements in here, yet my signature is on it." Mr. Pendleton furrowed his brow as he read through the document. "You are making a serious allegation. Are you saying you never requested this injunction?" "That is exactly what I am saying. I never asked for it, and the statements inside." "You are denying those as well?" "I did not make them. None of it is true." He looked up at me, carefully choosing his words. "Then what do you need from me, Kathleen?" "I want the injunction overturned so my children can see their father, and I want to know who is behind this." Mr. Pendleton leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "You do realize that if Tony is involved, it could ruin his career?" "I did not know that," I confessed, "but my children need their father. If Tony falsified evidence, then he has to face the consequences." He nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. I will investigate and get back to you this afternoon." Later, just as I was preparing to leave for the day, Mr. Pendleton called me back to his office. I quickly phoned Penny to ask if she could pick up the children. "What if Richard shows up?" she asked, sounding worried. "Let him talk to them," I reassured her. "Just do not let him take them. I am working on getting the order overturned. It does not apply to the kids, so it is fine." After hanging up, I headed to Mr. Pendleton's office. He rose to greet me when I entered, his demeanor more formal than usual, as if I were a client rather than a colleague. "Kathleen, I am glad you could come. I assume someone is handling the children's pickup?" "Yes, everything is taken care of, thank you, Mr. Pendleton," I replied. He smiled slightly. "You are always so organized. Please have a seat." As I sat down, I noticed the tension in the way he steepled his fingers, clearly deliberating over how to share what he had discovered. "Kathleen, thank you for bringing this to me. If you had taken it elsewhere, it could have embarrassed the firm." I spoke with the court clerk, and while they usually require original documents, a photocopy of your statement was submitted for this injunction. The clerk suspects your signature was added through cut and paste. My heart sank, knowing what was coming. Dinda Trent requested the injunction, acting on instructions from Mr. Woodward, who was very forceful. "We will handle Miss Trent appropriately. The injunction will be overturned tomorrow morning." He looked at me with sympathy. "I am sorry, Kathleen. This was all Anthony's doing. He used the firm's name without approval." He walked around his desk and sat on the edge. "Are you okay? Do you want to sit for a bit, or maybe have some tea?" "No, thank you, sir. I just need to get back to my children," I replied, holding myself steady. "Please call me Michael," he said gently, guiding me toward the door. I paused. "One more thing, Michael. What Anthony did kept my kids from their father for 3 months. I cannot forgive that, and I do not think I can keep working here. Please do not make any decisions just yet," he urged. "Let us see what happens next week." I nodded in agreement and left his office, immediately calling Penny to let her know I was on my way. That night, after the children were asleep, I began to wonder what else Tony had interfered with. I pulled out all the legal documents from the past year, and the photos fell out. Seeing them still made me sick. As I looked again, something clicked. The tattoo. Richard's tattoo was not visible in any of the pictures. It was not Richard in those photos. I laid them out, realizing Richard's face was only visible in half of them, always with his eyes closed. I checked the divorce papers. The grounds stated, Richard Thompson did commit infidelity with Miss Ava Bellandawa, but I had never known her name. Tony handled the divorce because I was too upset. Where had the lawyer gotten that name? The next day I started investigating. I searched for Ava Bellandawa and found multiple payments to her, including one for $2,000 from Tony's cost center. I went to speak with Maggie, Tony's secretary. "Hi, Kathy, what brings you here? You know Tony is away, right?" Maggie greeted me as I walked into her office. "Yes, I know," I replied. "I was hoping you could help me with some audit questions. We found payments to a Miss Eva Bellandawa, Do you know who she is? Maggie blushed slightly. Yes. Unfortunately, she is an escort Mr. Woodward uses to keep certain clients happy. I do not approve, so he handles it directly. Do you have a file on her? I asked. Yes, I will grab it for you, she said, heading to a filing cabinet. Maggie returned with a file in hand. She is a beautiful girl. You would think she could find a better way to make a living. She handed me the file, then asked hesitantly, Mr. Woodward is not in any trouble, is he? Nothing more than usual, Maggie. Do not worry, I reassured her. I waited until I got back to my office to open the file. As I reviewed it, Maggie's description was accurate. Eva was strikingly beautiful and intelligent, with a degree from the University of Kiev. The photos in the file showed her in a much better light than those I had seen during the divorce proceedings. I found her contact information and left her a message. She called me back around midday. Hello, this is Eva Belandawa. You called? Her voice came through the phone. Yes, I am Kathleen Thompson from Pendleton, Sims, and Woodcock. I would like to discuss something with you. Could we meet for lunch? You work for Mr. Woodward? I already told him I do not work for him anymore, Eva responded, sounding irritated. No, I do not work for him. This is a different matter. It is work-related but not connected to Woodward. Fine, she said, her tone softening slightly. Name a time and place. Roberto's at 1:30 p.m.? I suggested. Okay, you pay. See you then. At 1:30, Eva arrived fashionably late, drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. After we shook hands and ordered our meals, she did not waste any time. What do you want? She asked bluntly. I slid a photo of Richard across the table. Her demeanor shifted immediately. Her cheerful expression vanished, and she looked visibly upset. I told him I would not do that again, she said sharply. You can tell him that. Tell who? I asked, confused. I do not work for Woodward. I am Richard's ex-wife. Eva's eyes widened in surprise. She sat back down, taking a moment to process. Well, this is disappointing. He used to talk about how beautiful his wife was, and you are pretty. But anyway, what do you want? She said, her tone turning dismissive. After our food arrived and we ate mostly in silence, she explained, I am an escort, yes, but I have self-respect. What happened that night made me lose it. Woodward paid me to hurt your husband. Your husband did not deserve it. He is a good man. He refused to come to my room. He kept talking about his wonderful wife. I had to get him so drunk he could barely stand, then took him to a room Woodward had booked. He was too drunk to do anything, so Woodward took the photos himself, posing me with your husband and the ex. That was Woodward. He said someone was going to do me for what he paid. He set the camera on a timer and did it himself. I took her hand. Nobody deserves that, Eva continued. Your husband was kind. The next morning, he did not even remember me. He apologized, thinking he had never met me before. I explained that Richard used that line with all attractive women, but she understood he genuinely did not remember her. I helped Woodward blackmail him, and that makes me feel terrible. I'm glad Richard did not do what Woodward wanted. I am sorry, Eva, I said. He is not my husband anymore. We divorced because of those pictures. Eva and I talked for another half hour. She was kind and easy to converse with, and I could see why men would be drawn to her. Afterward, I returned to the office and called Mr. Pendleton, who asked for details on the payments to Eva. Concerned, he requested a full review of all transactions. I called my mother to ask her to take Tom and Maddie for the night. I did not want them in the house when Tony came home. My mind was racing. The man I thought had betrayed me had not, and the one I trusted had been behind all my problems. I sat at my desk crying, feeling utterly overwhelmed. Brenda eventually came in, listened as I poured out everything, and then started asking questions. Do you love Tony? She asked. No, I do not think so. Maybe I never did, I admitted. How do you feel about Richard? She continued. I sighed. I am ashamed. Eva made him sound like the perfect husband. A year ago, you would have agreed with her, Brenda reminded me. I would have, I said softly. I wish I had never seen those photos. Well, you divorced him, like anyone would have in your position, she said, trying to comfort me. I should have listened to him, I replied, regret heavy in my voice. It is easy to say that now, Brenda said gently. Go home and think about what you are going to do next. I do not have time, I said, shaking my head. Tony is coming back tonight, and I know what I need to do. When I got home, I packed Tony's belongings into 2 large suitcases. By 5 p.m., everything was ready. I sat with a glass of wine, thinking about how I would tell Richard what I had uncovered. When Tony walked in and saw the suitcases, he looked confused. "What is all this? Are we going somewhere?" he asked. "No," I said calmly. "You are moving out." "What?" he said, his voice rising in disbelief. "I know about the injunction, Tony." I spoke to Eva. "I want you out of my house and out of my life." "Let us talk about this," he said, grabbing my shoulders and pushing me toward the dining room. His grip tightened painfully. "I am not leaving. I put too much into this." "Tony, you are hurting me," I said, trying to pull away. "Oh, now you notice?" he sneered, tightening his hold even more. "Sit down, and I will tell you how it is going to be." As we entered the dining room, I felt a chair behind me. I pushed his hands off me, accidentally scratching his nose and making it bleed. Furious, he swung his hand to slap me, but I caught his wrist, spun him, and threw him to the floor. Thanks to the self-defense lessons Richard had insisted I take, I held Tony's wrist down and pressed my foot against his chest. "Why, Tony? What did Richard ever do to you?" I demanded. "Nothing," he spat. "He had what I wanted, so I took it. You do not care about me. You just wanted the image," I said, my voice cold. "Exactly," he admitted. "The business world trusts family men. I would never make partner as a single guy. I saw a shortcut. Marry you, be a family man. In a year, you are attractive, the kids are cute. I had it all." I pressed my heel harder into his ribs. "Say one more thing, and I will give you real heartache." Then I knew what I wanted. I let go of his wrist, stood up, and picked up the phone. I dialed Richard. "Richard, can you come over? I need to talk to you." "No, the kids are fine. It is about something else." "Oh, and bring your rifle." I hung up and looked at Tony. "You have got 5 to 10 minutes before he gets here. Do you really want to be here when I tell him what you did? You think I am scared of him? You do not know him. You tried to take away the most important thing in his life, his kids. That makes him dangerous. Now get up and pack your things before it is too late." As Tony was leaving, Richard pulled up in his old Volvo, watching the red BMW drive away. I opened the door and hugged him, but he stiffened, like I was embracing a stranger. He gently pulled my arms away. "What do you want, Kath? You have already taken everything from me. And since when do I own a rifle?" Richard asked, his tone bitter. I paused, realizing how much damage there was to repair. The man who once loved and trusted me now saw ulterior motives in everything I did. "It is not like that, Richard. I just want to talk and explain," I said, trying to sound calm. He glanced past me, his eyes narrowing. "Was that not your boyfriend driving off?" "What? Is he coming back with the police to arrest me?" "There is no injunction, and Tony is not coming back." "Please, just come inside," I pleaded. Reluctantly, Richard followed me into the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa, clearly ready to bolt at any moment. "Can I get you a drink?" I offered, trying to ease the tension. "Sparkling water or coffee, please. I do not drink anymore." "Not since that night when everything fell apart," he said quietly. I made his coffee just the way he liked it and handed it to him. "Where are you living now?" I asked, trying to make small talk. "With Rob at the scrapyard, sleeping in one of the kids' rooms," he replied. "They have been great to me, even let me have the old Volvo." "How is work?" I asked, though I was not sure I wanted to know. "They let me go 6 months ago." "I was useless after everything happened," he admitted, staring at the floor. "I get some contract work now." "You have still been making the payments on time," I noted. "My kids are not going to suffer because I messed up," he said firmly. His words cut deep. "You are not making this easy," I said, feeling the weight of what I was about to confess. "Why should I?" He shot back. "You threw me out and took everything over one mistake." "That is the thing, Richard. You did not make a mistake," I said softly. He looked at me confused. "What do you mean? You did not sleep with her?" "It was all a setup," she told me. "I am so sorry," I said, my voice breaking. His anger shifted to disbelief. "But those photos, some were of you, but the rest were of Tony," I explained. "Eva told me everything. She is ashamed of her part in it and wants to help." Richard just stared at me, trying to process what I had just told him. I went to the kitchen, tears welling up. Seeing how much pain Richard was in tore me apart. I brought him his coffee and sat down with my glass of wine. He took a sip and gave a small smile. "You still make great coffee," he said. Then after a pause, he added, "Now tell me how Tony set me up." I explained everything, asking him not to call Tony Loverboy because it was never love. Richard listened, calm on the surface, but I could tell he was processing everything quietly, and that worried me. "Richard, please do not do anything rash," I pleaded. "We need you. Stay here tonight. You will feel better in the morning." He shook his head. "I cannot stay. I have got a date tonight. Do not worry. I will not do anything stupid." When Richard mentioned a date, it felt like a punch to the stomach. I had not considered that he might have moved on, even though I had lived with Tony for 6 months. I winced as he stood to leave, feeling the weight of lost time. Desperate, I used the only card I had left. "The kids are eager to see you. Could you come by tomorrow?" I asked. "Really? You would be okay with that?" he asked, his surprise evident. Of course, I replied. "You can pick them up from Mom's tomorrow, and I will stay there until Sunday night. You can have time with them here or take them out." Tears welled in his eyes as I handed him the house keys. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice soft. "They are your children too. You should see them whenever you want." As he left, he turned and said, "Thanks, Kath. I will be here around 1. I have got something in the morning." Later, I called Mom to explain what had happened. She was not surprised. She had never liked Tony, always calling him a creepy little man, and she had believed from the start that I should have given Richard another chance. In her mind, you stood by your man. She still called Richard her son-in-law and was thrilled at the thought of seeing him again. Richard arrived at 1:30 the next day, and Mom insisted we all have lunch together. It was the first time in over a year we had sat down as a family, and she loved every minute of it. As Richard left with the kids, she kissed him on the cheek and told him to come back soon. After they left, Mom turned to me. "So, what is your plan now?" I sighed, feeling overwhelmed. "I do not know, Mom. It is all such a mess. Do you think you can rebuild your life with them? He still loves you, you know." "I am not sure," I admitted. "He is so hurt and angry." "He will calm down," she said confidently, "especially now that he can see the kids." That was a smart move. "I will try," I said, unsure, "but I am going to need help." Mom nodded, her voice firm. "Then start eating humble pie and building alliances." She was right. If I wanted Richard back, I would have to start with his family. The weekend went well. Mom and I grew closer, united in purpose. I returned home Sunday evening, just in time to help Richard put the kids to bed. They were happy and full of stories about their time with him. Afterward, I offered Richard sparkling water and suggested he pick the kids up from school sometimes. We parted on good terms, giving me hope. Monday arrived too quickly, and I was nervous about facing Tony. I had my resignation letter ready, but decided to honor my commitment to Michael Pendleton. I watched Tony arrive, looking confident, while I failed to notice a white truck parking next to his BMW. Tony, fresh from a successful trip, was in high spirits. His secretary greeted him warmly as he headed to his office. "Mr. Pendleton wants to see you right away," she said. Tony dropped off his briefcase and made his way to the top floor. He walked into Michael Pendleton's office, ready to share his success. Before he could speak, Michael pulled out a file and said, "I'm glad to hear about the new client, Anthony, but that is not why I called you. It seems you have been up to some mischief using the firm's name." Tony looked confused. "I am sorry, Michael. I do not understand. Do you deny pressuring Dinda Trent into filing an injunction against Richard Thompson?" Anthony began to feel uneasy. "Yes, I did request the injunction, but it was urgent. He was threatening Kathy and me. We needed protection." "So, you deny submitting false evidence for that injunction?" "Yes, of course." "Then can you provide the original statement signed by Mrs. Thompson?" "She denies making one and claims the allegations are false." "You only provided a copy, so where is the original?" "Damn," Anthony muttered, standing abruptly. He noticed the 2 security guards who had quietly entered the office. "From that reaction, I assume it is true," Michael said coldly. "Please sit down. We are not finished." Anthony knew his career at Pendleton, Sims, and Woodcock was over. Now he wondered how bad it would get next. "There are some accounting issues. We have records of payments to Miss Eva Belandawa, all signed by you. You have listed these expenses as entertainment. What exactly was she doing for us?" Anthony hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. Michael, sometimes keeping clients happy means doing things we are not proud of. Michael leaned back, his expression cold. So which client did she entertain when you paid her double? I would have to check my records, Anthony replied, avoiding eye contact. Miss Bellandawa says you used her to blackmail a client, Michael pressed. That is not true. He was not a client, Anthony shot back defensively. Michael raised his hand, cutting him off. I have heard enough. We are handing everything over to the police. You will likely face charges, and the Law Society may revoke your license. These gentlemen will escort you to your office. You have 1 hour to collect your things. Anthony left the building, his confidence drained. His mood darkened further when he spotted Richard standing by his parking space, a box of Anthony's belongings at his feet. As Anthony approached, Richard set the box down and glared at him. Too late to act tough, Richard. Move, Anthony snapped. Richard gestured toward the parking space, revealing a red metal cube, a crushed car. Anthony's eyes widened as he recognized the remnants of his BMW, the badge still attached. Furious, he swung at Richard, his fist barely grazing him. Richard retaliated swiftly, kicking Anthony between the legs and driving his knee into Anthony's face, knocking him to the ground. Anthony, bleeding and struggling to stand, looked up just as 2 police officers arrived. Perfect timing, officers, Anthony said, trying to regain his composure. I want this man charged with assault. One of the officers stepped forward. And your name is Anthony Woodward? He replied confidently. The officer's expression shifted. Anthony Woodward, you are under arrest for conspiracy to blackmail. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you fail to mention something you later rely on in court. As the officers cuffed him, Anthony protested. What about his attack on me? You saw it. Yes, we saw you swing first. And he responded with reasonable force to defend himself, the officer replied calmly. Then he turned to Richard. Here are our badge numbers in case you want to press charges. Anthony, still fuming, pointed toward the metal cube. Look what he did to my car. The officer glanced over. Your car? You mean the red BMW over there? He pointed to an intact vehicle parked across the lot. Another officer placed Anthony's belongings inside it before leading him toward the patrol car. Richard followed, his voice calm and measured. Get used to this, Woodward. There are plenty of laws against what you did, and I will make sure you are held accountable for every single one. You tried to take everything from me, but now it is my turn. As the patrol car pulled away, Rob arrived in a truck, using a crane to lift the scrap metal cube. He jumped down with a grin and high-fived Richard. Oh, Richie, his face was priceless. What about phase 2? In a week or so, you will be driving a new Beamer, Richard replied, smiling. Back in the office, Brenda walked in and said, Kath, you have got to see what is happening in the parking lot. I went to the window and watched as Anthony was driven away in a police car. Richard and his brother Rob were in the parking lot, laughing and loading something onto the back of Rob's truck. They high-fived and slapped each other on the back. I hoped whatever they were up to would not get Richard in trouble. It would devastate the kids if he was taken away again. After lunch, Michael Pendleton called. He explained what had happened and asked if I still wanted to resign. With Tony gone, there was no point in leaving. He reassured me that Tony acted alone and that the firm did not condone his actions, likely worried about any legal action Richard or I might take. By the end of the day, most people had forgotten about the incident. I picked up the kids from school and saw Richard talking with Penny. They both smiled, and when the kids saw Richard, they ran to him, shouting, Daddy! He hugged them tightly, and Tom eagerly asked if Richard could come home with us. Richard looked at me, and I nodded, bringing a genuine smile to his face. I suggested the kids ride in Richard's car, and they did not care that it was old and beat up. They were just happy to be with their dad. Richard stayed until the kids were asleep. Before he left, I tried to talk to him about what I had seen earlier. You and Rob are up to something, are you not? Please do not do anything that will get you in trouble. We cannot lose you again. Richard reassured me. Do not worry, I am taking him down. But my kids will not be visiting me in prison. That night, Tony's car disappeared from the company lot. The police found it the next day, burned out in the woods. Richard sued Tony for damages, including child support, reputation damage, and harm to our marriage, valuing it at £200,000. He was determined to destroy Tony, but I just wanted it all to be over. Richard and Rob could not stop laughing as they worked on the red BMW. Rob explained how they reprogrammed a blank key to steal the car and removed its identifying marks. They used parts from a wrecked car to swap the ID numbers, ensuring the car would be untraceable. Richard asked, "Can he prove it is his car?" "Not a chance," Rob said. "The burned-out car was crushed. Your new ride is squeaky clean." Richard then mentioned, "He is out on bail now." "Think he will get off?" "Not with Eva testifying," Rob replied. Richard was intrigued by Eva, surprised by how nice she turned out to be despite her job. With immunity, she agreed to testify, further sealing Tony's fate. Richard smiled, knowing he now had the upper hand. As they finished, Richard said, "I hope he goes crazy when he sees me with his car. Maybe even attacks me so I can get him arrested again." Rob chuckled. "And he called you a chicken. You fight the battles you can win, Rob, and right now, I have got all the big weapons on my side." As they walked back to the bungalow, Richard thought about what his brother had said. "So, when did you talk to Kath?" "I did not, but she has been talking to Vicky. They are getting close again." "You are right. I need to figure things out with her, but first, I need to deal with him." 2 weeks after Tony's arrest, Richard arrived at school in a new car. Maddie immediately noticed. "Daddy, why are you driving Uncle Tony's car?" "It is not Uncle Tony's car, sweetheart. It just looks like it." "It is identical," she insisted. I could not help but ask, "Where did you get the money for this?" "I bought it from Rob. It is an insurance write-off. Only cost me £1,000, and I got 200 for the Volvo." "Do not worry, I have got it covered," he said with a grin that suggested there was more to the story. Since getting the car, Richard drove everywhere, which did not go unnoticed by friends who commented on its resemblance to Tony's. For me, it was a constant reminder of what Tony had done to us. Richard was still living with Rob and Vicky and refused my offers to stay over. To make things harder, he was dating. He said it was nothing serious, but it worried me. He was single, and anything could happen. I hoped his tattoo would scare off potential love interests, though I knew that was wishful thinking. Every day I regretted my mistakes. Watching Richard with the kids, seeing the love he had for them, reminded me of how he used to love me. As the trials approached, I hoped that once it was over, we could rebuild our life together. Richard attended the trials, the first involving misappropriation of funds. Eva Belandawa was the key witness, explaining how Anthony had paid her to seduce Richard under the guise of business. She cried as she revealed she had been misled, portraying herself as an innocent Ukrainian woman manipulated by Anthony. As she left the stand, she smiled at Richard. That evening, Eva waited for Richard and invited him to dinner. He was impressed by her intelligence and beauty, understanding why she commanded high fees. As they ate, Richard noticed the envious glances from other men in the restaurant. When the coffee arrived, Eva reached across the table and placed her hand gently on Richard's. "Would you like to come home with me tonight?" she asked softly. Richard, taken aback, replied, "You do not owe me anything." "I know," Eva said, her voice sincere. "I am not offering out of obligation. I want to. I have been with many men, but tonight I want to be with you. You are a good man, and I think it will be good for both of us." When the bill came, Eva insisted on paying, using her diner's card. They took a cab to her flat. Once there, Richard stood by the window, gazing out across the river while Eva poured drinks. "Are you sure you just want water?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "That is the only thing I am sure of right now," Richard replied, his voice steady. Eva handed him a glass, then looped her arm around his and kissed him softly. "Now you are sober, there are no cameras, and you are a free man. Let us enjoy ourselves, yes?" Richard smiled faintly. "Oh, yes," he said, pulling her closer. She led him to the bedroom. They made love, and afterward, as they lay together in silence, Richard remained lost in thought. Sensing his unease, Eva kissed him gently, as if answering the unspoken question on his mind. "Thank you, darling. That was wonderful," she said softly. Richard smiled wryly. "I bet you say that to all the guys." "To clients, yes, because they pay to hear it," Eva admitted. "But I mean it with you. Most men just take what they want. You make love to me, and that makes me feel special. Kathy is a lucky woman." "Not anymore. We are divorced, remember?" Richard said, his voice heavy with emotion. Eva smiled knowingly. "You will go back to her once the anger fades." "I know it." Richard looked at her, surprised. "How can you be so sure?" Is this your way of saying you do not want to see me again? No. I enjoy being with you, Eva reassured him. But I will not give up my work. You would not be okay with that. Richard was silent for a moment. Then Eva added, and besides, you are still in love with her. That is why it hurts so much. What makes you think she wants me back? Richard asked, doubt creeping into his voice. She does, Eva said confidently. Trust me, Richard exhaled. So, what now? Now, Eva said with a smile. We shower and sleep. Tomorrow we make love again before court. The next day in court, Anthony pleaded guilty and asked for leniency. His lawyer argued that his legal career was over, and he offered to repay the stolen funds. The judge gave him a 3-year sentence, suspended for 5. Richard was furious, expecting a harsher punishment. He left the courtroom to cool off, and when Anthony walked by, smiling, Richard wanted to react but felt Eva's calming hand. One lawyer will not punish another, she reminded him. I thought he would go down. A mom gets jail for stealing milk, and he walks after stealing thousands. Richard fumed. Eva reassured him that the blackmail charge was still pending, which helped calm him down. Richard did not visit the kids for 2 days, clearly upset. I called Vicky, and she said he had not returned home right after court. I worried until I got a text. Do not worry, he is back. It took another day for Richard to visit the kids. They greeted him like he had been gone for months. That night he told me about the trial, but I could not match his anger. I just wanted to move forward and leave Tony behind. Vicky and Rob discussed Richard staying with them longer than expected. Rob suggested he move back into our house, but Richard was not sure. Vicky jumped in, urging him to give it a chance, reminding him I was the one who exposed Tony and helped take him down. Richard was not convinced, still feeling hurt over the past. But she slept with the man who set me up, he argued. Vicky calmly pointed out that I kicked Tony out as soon as I learned the truth and tried to fix things. Having Richard around was helpful. He often picked up the kids and stayed for dinner, but there was still distance between us. When he mentioned needing to find a place to live, I suggested he move in with us, reminding him he was already paying the mortgage. He eventually agreed. After moving back, things did not progress as I had hoped. 4 weeks in, we still were not sharing a bed, and he continued going out a few nights a week, often not coming home until the next day. I knew someone else was still in his life. We grew closer as a family in some ways, spending weekends together and attending the kids' school events. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal family. My friend Penny even asked if we were planning to remarry, but I broke down, telling her we slept in separate rooms and I suspected he had a girlfriend. Things worsened when Maddie, upset about sharing her room, innocently asked, "Why can't Daddy sleep in your bed?" Her childlike logic hit hard, especially when she pointed out, "You were not married to Tony, but he slept in your bed." The silence was crushing. Richard overheard, stood up, grabbed his coat and left, saying, "I am going for a walk." Maddie started crying, asking if Daddy would come back. I assured her he would, and he did return later to tuck the kids in, though he went straight to his room afterward. That moment set us back. When the blackmail charge against Tony was dropped, I feared it would break Richard, but I was somewhat relieved he would not have to lie in court, something I knew he could not do. I tried to console Richard after the blackmail charge was dropped. We could sue him in civil court and take whatever money he has, I suggested. But that was not enough for Richard. He wanted Anthony in prison. To lift his spirits, I suggested taking the kids swimming that weekend. Penny and her kids joined us. Playing with the children seemed to cheer him up, and he even started teaching Maddie how to swim. Penny kept staring at Richard, and I nudged her. "Hey, that is my husband you are ogling." She laughed. "Do not you mean ex-husband?" "I am working on that," I said with a grin. "You better hurry. Once he is back to himself, there is going to be a line," she teased, watching him swim. I realized she was right. He looked great, and I noticed some women watching him too. I turned to Penny and said, "I am going to fix him, and when I do, he will be all mine." Penny chuckled. "Good luck with that. What is your secret weapon?" "Those two," I said, pointing to Maddie and Tom. "He will not go far as long as I have got them, and I will make sure he never wants to." After swimming, Richard suggested we all go to Pizza Hut. It was a perfect end to the day. As we walked out of the mall, he held my hand, and I felt a spark of hope until I saw Tony. He smirked at us. Well, well, looks like my cast-offs found someone to take care of them, Richard calmly replied. As I recall, she threw you out. Tony sneered. All the charges are dropped. You really thought you could take me down? Richard guided the kids away, but Tony followed, taunting him. What now, big man? Going to roll over like always? Richard turned to Penny. Can you take the kids home, please? Penny quickly bundled the children into her car, sensing trouble. Richard and I headed toward the BMW, but Tony ran after us, shouting, That is my car. You stole it. Before Richard could react, Tony punched him, knocking him to the ground. He kicked Richard while he was down, and I dialed the police, trying to pull Tony away, but he shoved me to the ground. Richard winked at me, then with a swift move struck Tony in the groin, sending him reeling. Richard followed up, punching Tony's jaw and pinning him to the ground. I think you just activated your suspended sentence, Richard said coldly. It is your word against mine, Tony groaned. Richard nodded toward a CCTV camera. Big Brother is watching. That camera has caught everything. As the police arrived, they pulled Richard off Tony. Paramedics treated both men. Richard had broken ribs, and Tony had a broken jaw. Richard and I rode in the ambulance together. Despite his pain, he smiled. He is going down, Kath. We will not see him for a few years. I smiled through tears. I just wish the car did not remind me of him. Then we will get it repainted, he said, squeezing my hand. I could not hold back anymore and cried. I am so sorry, Richard. This is all my fault. No, it is his fault, and now he is going to pay. Richard was right. He had broken ribs and liver damage, but after 2 days in the hospital, he came home. Tony, with his jaw wired shut, was taken into police custody. Rob collected the BMW, and a week later, the police came to inspect Tony's claims. After checking the documents, they said we had nothing to worry about. I insisted Richard use the master bedroom. I slept beside him for the first few nights to make sure he was okay, though we only slept. Waking up next to him felt like heaven. After 2 weeks, he moved back to his own room, and while we were closer, it was not quite what I had hoped. Unfortunately, once he was well, Richard went out again and did not return until the next day. Eva called a couple of times while he was recovering, worried about him. Once he was better, they met up, but Richard sensed something was wrong at her flat. He asked, What is bothering you, Evie? It is not you, she said with a sad smile. It is me. I like you too much, Richard, but you have your children, and I know you cannot leave them. I cannot keep doing this. You deserve better. They spent the night together, knowing it would be their last. The next morning, they parted on good terms, but Richard was quieter when he came home. He did not talk much about it, and I did not push him. Over the following weeks, it seemed like he had broken things off for good. He was not going out as much anymore. It took a month for Richard to fully recover, but he never stopped playing with the kids. By the time Tony's trial came up, we were getting along much better. We were both called as witnesses, along with Penny. Before the trial, the prosecution warned us Tony might claim provocation, though the CCTV footage was clear. Penny was a star witness, calmly recounting how Richard had asked her to take the children away to avoid a fight. When the defense asked why, Penny replied, It was obvious, mister. Woodward was itching for a fight. Mr. Thompson did not want his kids to see him getting hurt. Her answer was simple and honest, and I could almost see the jurors marking Richard as a good dad and family man. The judge sentenced Tony to 10 years, plus 3 more from his suspended sentence. He might be out in 7 years with good behavior, but for now, Richard felt relieved. The civil case for damages was still pending, but with Tony in prison, Richard was much happier. Tony's accounts were frozen until the case was settled, and during this time, Richard and I grew closer. Though we still had not rekindled our physical relationship, we shared our thoughts and dreams, but the unresolved tension was frustrating. One night, I could not take it anymore. I quietly slipped into Richard's bed and kissed him. He responded, and we made love, just like I had longed for. But afterward, he gently told me I needed to go back to my room, saying it would confuse the kids if they found us together. His rejection stung, and I cried myself to sleep. It took a week for things to feel normal between us again. Our relationship improved slowly, with moments of closeness followed by Richard retreating to his own space. I knew I had to make a bold move. In February 2012, I prepared his favorite dinner, put champagne on ice, and after the kids were in bed, I put on a white silk kimono. I knelt in front of him, holding his hand. "Richard Thompson, will you marry me?" I asked, my voice trembling. He was surprised, but eventually slid my old engagement ring onto my finger. I was overjoyed and pulled out the champagne. He teased me, but we both knew it was a turning point. He carried me upstairs, and that night felt like a fresh start. The next morning, Maddie saw us together and asked, "Mommy, are you and Daddy married now?" "Not yet, but soon," I replied, and she eagerly asked to be a bridesmaid. Moments later, Tom joined us in bed. It was a perfect family moment, but I knew we still had work to do. Over the next 6 months, we both went to counseling to deal with our issues. Richard needed to release his anger, and I had to forgive myself. Finally, last August, we got married with Maddie as our bridesmaid. During the civil case, Tony's solicitor offered us his 2 rental properties as a settlement, and Richard agreed on the condition that they also covered our legal costs. Richard mostly stuck to his no-booze rule, occasionally having just 1 drink. His contract work grew, and his old company even offered him his job back. He declined, pointing out that his contractor rate was much higher, and now he is employed at a higher level than his former boss. Winning back Richard's family has been challenging, but as they see how happy he is, they are starting to forgive me. I am hopeful this time we will make it for good.